Well, okay, so this session is the really last session of the COMEUP. And actually, we have got a lot of international guests here. So I'm basically going to moderate this session in English. And then, but if you have any questions in your any preferred language, we try to translate. And then, yeah, we'll answer as clearly as possible. All right, so firstly, well, actually, this session's title is Startup Wishlist for 2023. So it's kind of a burden on all our shoulders because actually we have to have some kind of prediction on what's going to happen next year, and what are the really wish list for startups, and what startups want, and what kind of growth strategy will be needed in the next year. But I think obviously all our panelists are super insightful people, so I think they will give a lot of really interesting, insightful answers as well. So firstly, well, let us start with the intro to the panelists. So maybe you can start. Maybe Shuo here. So Shuo is the CRO and then founder of Deel. And then could you just introduce yourself briefly, and then what it is about, and then yeah, everything.
Thank you so much, Josh, for the kind intro. I'm Shuo. I came from Israel before, and then I'm going to San Francisco later tonight. So I'm the co-founder and the CRO of Deel. CRO is I'm the chief revenue officer in charge of making money for the company. So what we do at Deel is we help companies to hire remotely, and then we manage localized payroll and HR and compliance, and also we help companies to expand their global business. And today we're about 1,500 people, and we have been growing very fast for the past 3 years. We founded the company in 2019, and then we grow from $1 million ARR to $100 million ARR within 20 months, and also we raised our Series A to Series D within 18 months.
Wow, wow, so impressive. Thank you very much for your introduction. Okay, so let's move to Bryan.
Hello, my name is Bryan. With a fund called Collaborative out in San Francisco, New York. I'm now based in kind of Korea and heading up Asia efforts. Here, we're early stage fund, mostly investing at the intersection of for profit and for good, and manages about $1.45 billion these days. Our notable investments include Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, Lyft, Kickstarter, TaskRabbit, Quora, Reddit, and some in Korea. One's called SoCar, which is one of the biggest sponsors. Thank you and congrats again. Yeah, I'm good to be here and excited to chat with all the amazing folks here.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move to Jeong-Hee, please.
Hi, I am Jeong-Hee Ha. I am an executive director of T3 Jubilee Partners. We are impact investing company. So as an impact investor, I support and find startups that disrupt status quo and find solutions to especially climate issues and social problems. Actually, we have proudly invested in Repla. The CEO is here, a company that disrupts the plastic waste problem. So I am even happier to join this discussion.
Okay, smoothly moving to Dongeun here.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dongeun from Repla. Repla discovered a bacteria that selectively degrade plastic type. So we make it possible for plastic recycling companies to make higher profit by making higher purity of the plastic. Yep. And proudly we have T3 Jubilee Partners as our investor. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see your gesture like this. That was great. All right. So basically, the purpose of this session is to make firstly really, the balanced, profile of all the panelists. So we got a Decacon here. So we got VCs and the impact in the company, also all stage startups. So we would like to hear all different kind of voices from different type of startup ecosystem players, so that we can have a really various, predictions and an overview on the next year. Right. So actually, last year, well, to be honest, that everybody was quite happy to come up here. There are a lot of startups. There are so many success stories about funding. So everybody was so happy. But I mean, nobody actually expected that this year would be such a really hard time. So but it is also obvious next year also will be even tougher. A lot of people actually predicted, that next year, will be even harder and tougher for the startups, and a lot of startups are really required to survive rather than really just kind of really rocket, speeded growth. So firstly, maybe my first question, perhaps to Bryan, is how do you see VC's funding strategy next year? And if any, what major changes will we see?
I'm not sure if there will be just one or two changes, but a lot of VCs, at least in the US, have not been making late-stage investments or been less active. I mean, everyone knows that the deal activities and the late-stage hedge funds who've been investing in the Series Bs and Cs or later stages have kind of paused or had tough time making new investments. So the new funding strategy, I think, will be kind of continuing the similar path for the 2023, or at least like first half. And there's so much uncertainties, I guess, starting now with inflation, the continued ongoing war with Russia and Ukraine, the earnings season for the past quarter has not been as exciting. So I mean, all the big tech companies have also gotten dramatically decreased valuations, and that also impacts the late stage companies. So to that extent, a lot of, again, late stage / VCs are more cautious. But at the same time, there's so much dry powder, the highest dry powder in the venture kind of community like ever. So there should be a lot of activities at some point, but I think people are still just waiting. And for startups, I think it's as you mentioned, Josh, I think it's just better to be cautious with your cash burn and try to survive. I think that's probably the, I guess, sage advice or anyone can give, but yeah, nothing new.
Nothing new, right? So, well, according to your comments, basically, the startups are required to firstly focus on cost saving, survive with their cash flows. But still, if any startup wants to really raise the fund, and then how should the startup shape their funding strategy?
I think if a startup has raised from the other VCs, maybe just go to the existing investors and see if they can get some kind of bridge round, and also show them what can be done with that bridge round, and maybe that can intrigue some of the new investors. But at the end of the day, no one knows what's going to happen without fundraising, and so try to get to cash flow positive would probably be the smartest and probably should be the top priority for most of the startups. Again, but there are amazing companies like Deel who achieve amazing growth, and a lot of VCs want that as well. So, but yeah, I think now is the time to be more focused on the profitability than the growth. Mm-hmm. So.
Right, great, thanks a lot. Yeah, so I'd like to also move the question to Jeong-Hee. Basically, global economic crisis may still continue, as we just mentioned before. But I mean, I sometimes think that if our planet is not livable, what's the matter, right? So basically, I think sustainability will be probably top priority for all the sectors here. So, and also, as far as I know, especially investment in this kind of social area is still increasing, even if we are really going through really hard times. So I just wonder, if really more investment in environment, energy sectors will be one of the big trends next year, or if so, how big it will be?
Yeah, let me start from here. Since the Paris Agreement in 2015, the UN requests each country to establish plans for the carbon emission reductions. And as many of you might know, currently the Climate Change Conference by UN, alternatively known as COP27, is happening right now in Egypt. So world leaders come together to discuss and update their plans for their carbon emissions reduction. And these types of global collaboration has already shaped discussions and economic and political dynamics between countries, especially about carbon credit. So these countries are now do not have any other choice but to focus and invest in the climate technology. So it is kind of very inevitable at the future. And also on top of that, this year we had record-breakingly horrible situations a lot here and there. We had lots of heavy flooding and severe drought and wildfires. We lost more than 1,600 people in Pakistan and more than 600 people in Nigeria due to heavy flooding, which is very unusual. But experts are saying this will become more normal in future. Very frightening to hear, but that's also the truth we are facing at. So it is not weird to see the ESG theme is becoming very prevalent these days. So even venture capitalists now started to look into the climate tech. Bryan is also look into that sector. So it is not uncommon at all for VCs look into this sector, and out of many things, I also read a news article which shows that investment in the climate sector has increased by almost 500% year on year globally. This happened while all other investments in traditionally popular area like e-commerce or SaaS platform or biotech has shrunk. So this trend is continuing, and actually we do see a very similar trend also in Korea.
So, in the past, a lot of this kind of sector, like the environment, like the carbon zero, the recycling, renewables, all these technologies are recognized as in the area of just the social venture, but now it's kind of really going to the kind of mainstream. So, for example, after global financial crisis, 10 years ago, the fintech was so much welcomed. After the digital healthcare comes in, so now this kind of that kind of a really sustainability focused startups are really mainstream. But you just mentioned it is also happening in Korea, right? So basically, can you say a little bit more about some kind of situation in Korea as well?
Yeah, of course. Speaking of this climate tech ventures or investment, firstly, it is not uncommon anymore to see students and professors and engineers founding deep and hard tech, climate tech ventures based on their academic findings. Actually, we do also have pretty good and competitive startups chosen as COMEUP stars this year, like Repla again. And also from investment side, the pool of investors in this sector is also increasing, especially large corporations. Korean large corporations are direly searching for good climate tech startups because they do need to address this carbon emissions problem. So they are expanding their investment money, and also they are founding their own CVC. So they act not only as LPs, but also as a direct investors. So I think this trend will continue for the next few years to come.
Wow, okay. So thank you very much for your very insightful comments there. But I also very wonder, some kind of question to actually Dongeun. And it sounds like in clean tech startups, we'll have more and more opportunities than ever before. As as Jeong-Hee said, there'll be more and more opportunities there. But Dongeun, what do you think? Do you actually really feel the startup like Repla are getting more and more traction from investors? And if so, how much do you expect Repla to grow next year?
Thank you for the question. So firstly, Repla's Series A round ended really well due to the ESG fund. So the portion of the ESG fund in our Series A round was 34%, but it was initially 47% because the investor just split the fund because of their favor. So actually we can say that 50% of our funded was because of that. And it's very surprising thinking that last year the formed amount of the fund decreased by 1/3. So thinking of that, I think the portion of ESG fund got really increased in that. And secondly, so the actually recycled plastics price got really higher than the new plastic actually recently. So it's at least 10% higher price than the new plastic. And this is because, as Jeong-Hee director said, the large companies and the demand for the recycled plastic is too huge for the supply. So I wish that Repla can contribute to that role to make larger of that portion of the supply to match the demand. So I really hope that we grow better.
Yeah, perhaps next year you will be in the rookie league or maybe some other like unicorn league or whatever. So I really look forward to your growth as well. Okay, so let's slightly move our discussion topic to some kind of working environment culture. So Shuo, thanks for your patience. So as you are getting into the endemic era, right? There are a lot of also uncertainty, as we just mentioned. And so I think also our work culture, like an office environment, will also have to keep evolving to be aligned with this kind of evolution as well. So how do you think remote work or global talent sourcing and management will evolve next year? And how this new norm will affect the startups who will be facing a lot of push for survival?
I think typically it takes about 28 days for anyone to develop any kind of habit, right? And then because of COVID-19 and then the pandemic, it has been 3 years, right? So even though we're at the end of the pandemic, I still think people are already very used to work remotely, work from home. And also it has been proven that work from home can improve their productivity and efficiency when it comes to online working, right? And then there are so many tools out there, Slack, Zoom, Deel, to empower that kind of movement, right? So I do think, even though it is the end of the pandemic, I do think that working remotely is becoming the mainstream, and it's just a kind of lifestyle today, right? So I understand it is very popular. There's a term called WFA. So people tend to work from Jeju Island even though their headquarters is in Seoul, right? So I think that is just going to be a long-term habit. When it comes to global workforce, I understand that there is a talent shortage everywhere, right? And then that's why the concept of hiring internationally or the concept of hiring remotely got so popular. Even though even before the pandemic, it is a very like a popular trend to hire and then let those to hire talents across the world and then let those talents set from their own home country and work for any kind of project, right? So I do think like people will go back to office, but a certain percent of the people will still stay at home, and then it will become a combination. And then I also think that even because of the tough environment today, and then a lot of the company who are trying to survive, they are going to cut their cost, right? And then they are going to operate very lean, and then they are more and more open to hire talents across the border and then from like a more cost-efficient countries.
Okay, so I have a little bit of intermediate conclusion here. So basically, there are a lot of different type of uncertainty next year, financial uncertainty and environmental issues. The remote work, will be the norm, and then perhaps you have to find a lot of talent, not just in your local market, but also globally. So it seems like startup founders are needed to get more and more diverse, like skill set and capacity. So they need some kind of ESG literacy, talent acquisition skills, cost saving strategies. So from your perspective as a startup founder, like big companies and VCs, what additional strengths and capability should be startups equipped next year? If you have to just choose one, anyone can answer. So, who will do it? Yeah.
I can start. I think I have gone through the startup phases, right? And then Deel is my second company. My first company is a small company, and then I have been an early startup founder my whole life, right? And I have done that twice. I think especially during tough times, focus on product development and focus on operating lean, cutting expenses, and then do not spend money on unnecessary things such as renting an office if you can work from home, and then also save the money and then focus on talk to your users, collect client feedback, and then further R&D and build a really good product. And when the good time comes, you will find the product market fit, and it will be very fast for you to scale.
Yeah, sounds kind of like back to basic. Yeah, back to basics. So, okay, you try to focus on your product. You try to focus on making money. Try to focus on the real, core practice of the startup founders. I think that's a really, really fundamental lesson that we have to get. All right, and also I have a just question to perhaps Bryan and Jeong-Hee here. So maybe, because there are a lot of also startup founders here, so but what kind of startups actually do you look for? So if there's any startup that fit your interest, can you tell why you are a good investor? So what kind of support can you provide them? So can you pitch to the startups here? So what kind of startups are you looking for? Why are you a good VC? So yes, please.
I can start. So I don't do value add. So I just am chill, I guess. I don't bother the founders. Hopefully that helps. I don't try to give a lot of values, or I'm just kidding. I mean, trying to be, I don't know, so one of the companies, actually D3, and we've co-invested in, is a company called Armored Fresh here in Korea, which makes vegan cheese, and they are actually now in the US, FDA approved within a few months of launch, and now started selling in New York. So it could really help them on the kind of expansion from Korea to New York. And since we are also based in New York, we kind of offer them the office space, but also give the, the go-to-market strategy, connecting to retail stores. And I'm actually personally giving a founder a letter of recommendation to get a green card, for example. I mean, those are more tangible, and I happen to have amazing relationship with the founders. So hopefully those are some things I can help with. But yeah, what am I looking for? I love the founders who've been thinking and have a very strong insights around the problems that they've been thinking long enough, and have a unique advantage or some kind of problem-solving skills. So again, kind of coming back to Armour Fresh, they've been making they started with a food marketing agency and then worked with a lot of food companies and started developing their own food, wanting to put vegan cheese on it, but couldn't find anything, so they started developing it by themselves, and it happens to be amazing. One of the best cheese I've ever had. So not available in Korea, unfortunately, but they have cube cheese, mozzarella, cream cheese, sliced cheese, and I think they're going to be really, really exciting. So yeah, I'm just I love the founders who've been at it for a long time, and authenticity matters a lot to me.
Yeah.
I think that do not bother the founders is very important as well.
Yes.
I would totally take that.
That's true, right? Actually, I'm a big fan of cheese, so I definitely have to move there to taste some cheese as well. So what about you, Jeong-Hee? So can you also add some comments on this?
Yeah, continue the discussion about climate tech, which I mostly focus on. While many parties are trying to solve the climate issues, we cannot solve this problem if we focus only on a very specific areas like mobility or energy, which is very keen. Most of the investors are looking at this moment. But we cannot solve the problem if we do that only, because carbon emissions are linked to almost all human activities. So D3 Jubilee Partners is trying to pay attention to these large problem areas linked to many human activities, but we also focus on innovations on value chains where we can maximize the impact if the technology succeeds. So that's what we are aiming at. So with that investment thesis, we will continue to invest in this food, alternative protein, sustainable agriculture, and renewable energies, CCUS, and water, and beyond. And also, why we are helpful, I also need to be pitchy. So when these startups, especially in Korea, when they want to go global, we can become a good window because we have a good network of impact investors who have invested in this area for a long time. So yeah, we can be a good friend, and we don't also bother these founders too much as well.
All right. Yeah. So basically, both of you guys also focus on some kind of going global. This is an area that you guys can help a lot. Of course, the going global is some kind of also strength that also Deel has, especially for startups. So I'd like to ask, how can Deel, contribute to the growth of a Korean startup ecosystem? And I also wonder, what goal do you want to achieve next year in Korea?
So is growing very fast. It's one of our fastest growing market, right? So I'm here today because I see a huge potential in Seoul, in Korea, and then I have been talking to many startup founders here, and then also from my understanding, there is a huge talent shortage, right? So from designers, from product development, from engineers, as well as operations person, and people as well as data scientists, right? So it is very needed for any leader or founder to hire talents efficiently and effectively. So we can definitely help them to hire the best talents, right? So not only in Korea, but also overseas. And then we see a huge demand, increasing demand, and also we have quite a few clients already using our platform from Korea and based in Seoul. So I think that definitely we can empower those companies and the founders to better source their talents.
Wow, wonderful. So I really expect something's going to happen thanks to Deel, especially in the Korean startups next year. So it's very exciting. All right. I would like to add one question to Dongeun here. Actually, Korea is one of the countries in the world has a very complex and then complicated regulatory framework, to be honest. But what kind of policy regulatory limitation have you ever experienced? Or if not, what kind of policy regulatory support do you think is needed, especially to foster the innovation in especially clean tech in Korea?
Yeah, so actually, Ministry of Environment, they're quite doing well in plastic recycling. So first of all, they're measuring the quality of recycled plastic, and they incentivize differently to the recycling companies. And secondly, they are now also incentivizing the large companies. If they use more and more recycled plastic, then they actually give a huge economic incentives. So I think that's really good. But actually, I honestly think that government isn't really fully helping the Ministry of Environment, because our government announced that they will announce the plan for carbon neutral next year, March, but the Ministry of Industry and Energy already announced their plan, and they said that they will decrease the amount of renewable energy 8.7% point. So I think that's really sad. If you see the enforcement, they say that you have to match the plans internally, but it doesn't really match now. So I think the government, if they can make the plans match internally, it will be very great.
Right. Wow. So your kind of brave to make some kind of a really productive criticism on the government activities there. So I think quite a lot of government officials perhaps are watching this session, so perhaps they will take into account your ideas, hopefully. All right, so I've done with basically all the questions I prepared. So maybe I can open the floor I can open the questions to the floor. So if there are any questions from the audience, and then we will answer. Please.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, hi, I'm Shiva Baumek. I wanted to thank everybody on the panel for an excellent discussion about sustainability and the future of funding that plays into various different startup roles. I had a quick question about, I spent a little time in Korea. This is my first time coming to Korea. Excellent, vibrant ecosystem for the startup community here. What I did notice is that there is significant amount of sustainability investment roles that you are already playing. I didn't see that level of involvement on the startup side, on the other side. Why is that mismatch, other than the plastic recycling activity that is going on? Why is that? Why don't I see enough of startup communities involved in the sustainability and renewable and deep tech involvement?
Yeah, I think it is the starting point. It is also true that most of the venture capitals and formation of this ecosystem was almost all about platform business or e-commerce business so far. But we now do see the involvement of really competitive startups just now. So it is not surprising at all that you feel it's all about maybe government movement or VC discussions, but not that much startup involvement. That's very natural from your perspective. But we do see, on a daily basis, we do see many startups who also want to involve with corporations and also government project and so on. So you will see many of those good news in the future.
Yeah. Did it answer to maybe after this session you can also have discussion for the education, right? So is there any more question, please? Just one more, because we have a limited time for now. No more question? All right.
Can I add for the answer?
Oh yes, please, please.
I think honestly, clean techs, deep techs are busy developing the solutions maybe, because I think it takes time, like 10 years to make that kind of technology. And the ESG funds are being made like from last year and this year. So I think we have to wait a little more for them to open out for commercialization.
Thank you. Right. So yeah, you guys have a more further discussion during the networking session as well. All right. So as there's no more question here, so I'd like to wrap up these sessions. Perhaps maybe one by one, just very quick final comments that really you want to say. So if you go back home, I should have talked this one. So please don't do that, right? So please go on. So maybe we can start with Shuo.
Well, what can I say? Just hang on there, and then the good times will be back. I'm certain. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks.
Adding to that, mostly Koreans here, I guess. So 다 힘내세요. 화이팅입니다.
Wow. 감사합니다.
I hope that we take what we have learned and the connections we have made through this COMEUP 2022 and try to make more bold actions to make difference in future.
Thank you. And Dongeun, please.
I hope also Repla and other startups could put more effort to make customer-funded business, so they can have more positive cash flow. Thank you.
Yeah, customer funded product. I like that word. Thank you very much. All right, so we have finished it, and then thank you for watching us, and then thank you for staying with us. Thank you very much. Thank you.